Welcome to Regulated and Relational, a bi-monthly podcast brought to you by the Attachment and Trauma Network. In today's episode, Andi Fetzner joins Ginger and Julie and shares how her origins training work in Arizona supports adults in understanding trauma, building resilience, and reconnecting to themselves and others. Let's jump right in.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Regulated and Relational, our podcast produced by the Attachment and Trauma Network. I'm Ginger Healy.
And I'm Julie Beam.
And we're excited to share with you from both our personal experience and our professional knowledge what it truly means to be attachment-focused, trauma-informed, and how we can help children impacted by early childhood trauma. We're so excited today to welcome Andi Fetzner into our studio today to talk to us about the work she does at Origins Training, helping adults on the journey to resilience. Julie, could you tell us more about Andi?
Oh, gladly. Andi lives by the mantra that you don't have to be a therapist to be therapeutic. And of course, you know, if you listen to us, that we share that mantra. Andi has been working in social services for 15 years prior to founding Origins. And she was frequently frustrated by the lack of coordination between clients and the various systems that served them. It seemed that the focus was on symptoms and not on the underlying cause of the problems. We hear you, Andi. When she learned about the ACEs framework and trauma-informed approach, a light bulb went off. And this was how she could support people through the process of resolving those pain points in helping support clients and their families heal. So as she began shifting her focus and began training across sectors to amplify this approach to care, she draws on her personal experience and her professional education to encourage empowerment and equity. Andi has served in a variety of populations, including children with special needs, at-home youth, adults with special vocational training needs, and youth and families. Since moving to California in 2016, she's served youth and schools all over LA County, as well as the victims of the Malibu fires. And she currently lives her mission through her work at Origins Training, where she supports the integration of trauma-informed approach with people and organizations. She also does one-on-one trauma-informed therapy through telehealth to people in Arizona. So she's a busy woman that does that. We've been talking before we got on the podcast about the fact that she's a digital nomad and she enjoys yoga, eating good foods, mountaineering, and apparently trains, which could become its own episode someday. But welcome, Andi. It's so glad to have you here.
So grateful to be here. So grateful to get to talk about the things that we love to talk about and have the opportunity to make some connections today. Really looking forward to it kind of expanding on, where we've been, where we're at, and where we want to go together.
That's lovely. No, I met Andi last fall and we connected on so many levels, which didn't surprise me because our friend Melissa Sadin put us together. And anytime Melissa's like, you got to meet this person, it's usually a fantastic connection. So that didn't surprise me. We connected all around trauma-informed care and especially on the importance of resilience. So start, Andi, talking to us about what led you to form Origins Training and being on this resilience building mission.
Sure, absolutely. I would be remiss to talk about the like origin, of my career and what brought me to this work without talking about Pace's connection and Jane Stevens. I don't know if you know her. She just passed.
Yes.
And
yes.
we just wrote something about like, the early days, we'll call it. So as you're asking me this question, I'm thinking about that.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking about when I first learned about the ACE study and the adverse childhood experiences study. And that's the framework for this trauma-informed stuff, right? It made the connection between healthy behaviors um, and adverse childhood experiences and how that all works together. We all know those pieces of it. That really changed everything for me. I was a master's level student, and I went into a training, and the teacher handed out the survey. So I took the survey, as did everyone around me. I'm surrounded by like, real therapists. People have been in the field for a long time. I'm surrounded by other students. Some parents were in there. Some clients, it seemed like, but mostly professionals. Again, it was
Mm-hmm.
like
Mm-hmm.
new. Um, and so the teacher handed out the survey and then asked us, hey, we can get 1 to 10. 10 is lots of aces. You know, he said, who scored 0 on this? A couple hands went up. Who scored 1? A few more. 2, actually even more.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, who scored 4 or more? And most of the hands in the room went up.
Right.
Now, this for me was so impactful because I almost got a little tearful because it asks about like the stuff that happened to us. And everything in my training had said, pull up your bootstraps, when you be a blank slate, when you're here to help others, leave your stuff at the door. I'm an elder
Mm.
millennial, so I come on the cusp of that older paradigm and
Right.
the newer, more trauma-informed paradigm, I think, in the work world. And so that was huge for me. And that kind of gave me the intro. Fast forward to a couple years later, I'm sitting around a circle in an Arizona health community health clinic as a behavioral health therapist for kids and families. I'm working with my family to my left. I'm looking at the other professionals in the room on the right. It was a um, probation officer, a foster caregiver, a teacher even, and the caseworker.
Okay.
Um, and things were getting very emotional and heated in this child and family team meeting. And I look to my left. Bio dad gets up, gets a drink of water. I see mom doing some regulation with her fingers. The kiddo is playing with a fidget thing. And they're all utilizing these skills that
Mm-hmm.
we had practiced, get up, take a breath, take a drink, all these things. And then I look to my right and escalation is happening. I can feel the energy just, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, I know these people outside of this room, and I know they're here because they love kids and families, because they want to make a difference. I empathize with their frustration. This is like it was dark out. So we'll say it was in the winter and can say it's
Mm-hmm.
up 5-ish, right? The end of the day. But it was in that moment I was like, you know what? This trauma-informed stuff, this understanding stress and how it impacts us is not just for our clients.
Right.
It's for everybody. And so like that just clicked for me. And so I pivoted, I started doing trainings. Like I'm the person who tried to take a public speaking class in college and like again, I'm like kind of a crybaby. I cried. I was like, I can't do this. I just stood up there and I was like, I can't. It's too mortifying. But, I think what happens is when something is meant for us, we just do it. You do it or it doesn't get done.
Right.
And so I went into the community. I started working with DCFS in Arizona, which is the Department of Child and Family Services. I started working with my colleagues, doing little trainings and our little supervisions, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
talking about, hey, let's talk about a trauma-informed approach and how we do what we do,
Mm-hmm.
because that applies anywhere to the
Right.
caseworker, to the parent, to the caregiver, to the teacher, to the probation officer, right?
Mm-hmm.
How we do what we do, what we do might be different, but how we do it can be soft, kind, gentle, empathic, slow,
Mm-hmm.
which is maybe why I like
Oh,
trains.
good.
I
Yeah.
don't know.
This is so powerful, and you've taken me back to that moment that the very first time I had heard of ACEs and had taken my test score and the feelings that it brought up, and what made it okay that I think a lot of places are missing or not understanding is what happened next was that Dr. Melissa Sadin said, now, this is big, this is hard, this could be overwhelming. And so, for first, put yourself in the shoes of someone else you're working with or a child, right? Like that we don't want to traumatize a child. And that is how she introduced me to origins and origin training, was that you can't just bring up this heavy, hard topic and all the feelings that come with it unless if you're trauma informed and trauma sensitive, you do it in a way that cushions and softens and provides support and resources. And she said the best thing you can do is go to Origins training to talk about this and to do this. And so that's kind of where I want to go next, is maybe talking about and defining some terms: trauma sensitive, resilience building, healing centered. What are we talking about here? Because it's so much more than I think others have really understood. I think where some are still on this journey and at the beginning, and we don't just want to open Pandora's box and leave them there. And that's where you come in. So maybe, you know,
Yeah. So how do we do what we do, right? Like, and
yes.
Right.
then what, right? So we get to this point where we're like talking about understanding your life experiences impact how you show up no matter where you're at. Now,
Mhm.
in really stressful situations, sometimes we show up in ways that we're not super proud of. We might say the thing that we said we would never say, right? Like you want to take the words and just like put them back in your mouth. You like hear your parents' voice. You're like,
Right.
oh,
Right.
um, you might, find yourself 3 steps ahead of where you're going fast, I think you just are moving really fast and thoughtless in the actions because we are in our survival space. This is a normal response to a perception of a threat or a perception of a danger, even if
Mm-hmm.
it's not really what it is. How we do this is we talk about it, right? We bring it to light. When something is unconscious, then we can't really do anything about it. But when we slow things down and give it a name, when we say like this right now in this moment is not that, or maybe it's similar to that, but like let's take a minute and breathe and notice that,
Mm-hmm.
right? We say, um, we name we in this work we say you have to name it to tame it, right? And
Right.
that it starts with us,
Yes.
right? It's not about what somebody else is doing or has done. It's what is this bringing up in me
Mm-hmm.
that's causing me to get to this place of reactivity, of unconscious, of um, not being my best version of myself or most intentional version of myself. Um, and so we teach the language to create a shared language within an environment. So we work in workplaces. We worked with a few different clients recently, an admin team who supports doctors and healthcare administrators,
Mm-hmm.
and giving them language to understand that when you show up in a place and everything is chaotic, what we can do is we can set the tone by noticing and observing if somebody's not acting right or they should be doing this. That's going to bring something in me up, and I'm not going to be able to meet them.
Mm-hmm.
So I got to get myself calmed down. I have to understand that those behaviors are probably coming from a place of their distress. So
Yeah.
what is my role? My role is to be that container, to notice how my body, my thoughts, my emotions, and my behaviors are being impacted by this stress. And then we can take action. But the first step, which is the one everybody wants to jump over, everybody wants to like, well, let me just take deep breaths. But what are you noticing? And
Mhm.
how are those deep breaths impacting us? So even if right now we're shifting our body, right? And we start
Mm-hmm.
to notice how our breath shifts. I notice my shoulders dropped immediately. And if I take a beat in between my words, how just that can pivot the energy in our space. And this is a virtual space.
Right.
Great.
So, so that those kinds of skills, the first step again being naming it and creating a shared language. It starts with us and normalizing that stress is a normal response to an abnormal perception or experience. But it could potentially be trauma, it could be life experience. We don't play the trauma Olympics at Origins. We
Mm.
Yeah.
we we recognize like what we're dealing with and what we're managing is what's in front of us. So we
Right.
kind of start from there.
I love that. I love all of that. And what I heard in all of that was such intentionality. And that, and that to me, we could talk a little bit about it, is a real challenge these days to be intentional. Yeah. I think people are moving so fast. The world is so stressful. There's so much coming at you that your reactivity to that is to move fast, that it's very hard to hang on to that intentionality. We want to do, but then we don't, because we don't take the time to be intentional.
Right. And all we have is time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We often split. I mean, I'm so guilty of this. This is all stuff that I practice every day, and I often fail at. I can tell you yesterday, there was an interaction that got escalated, so quickly. And I think none of the parties showed up as their best, most intentional, conscious selves at the end of the day after all sorts of holiday organizing type things.
Right.
And then the best thing we can do is come back together. It's like the reconnection. We talk a lot at Origins about resilience being able to come back in. The definition of resilience in our definition is being able to come back into connection during or after times of stress.
Okay.
Because connection is where that healing happens. Connection with ourselves, connection with our intentionality.
Amen.
Versus, resilience, like we're just bouncing around. We're not bouncing back. We're not bouncing anywhere. What does back even mean? Especially if you've lived a life
if you've not been
survival.
Resilient, there's no back.
There's no back. There's no back. I did a workshop with it was like an introductory, just let's understand the language and these concepts with medical assistants who were from like the hardworking first generation American, often like medical assistants in a health clinic. And I was talking about the resilience zone. We call it the connection zone, window of tolerance, lots of different language, same concept. The place where we're able to be, the most regulated in our parasympathetic kind of nervous system, as we know. Or if we get real nerdy, we can talk about like the dorsal vagal versus the ventral vagal system and all of that.
Right.
But we talked about the connection zone, and I had 2 different people come up to me after that training in different times and say, I don't know that I've ever been in my connection zone. I go all day, I get home, I clean, cook, and then I crash and sleep, and then I wake up and I do it again.
Wow.
And so what we encourage is, okay, and let's see where you can notice yourself. Before you get into work, take 5 deep breaths at your car. Notice 5 things around you that you see, 4 things that you can hear, 3 things that you can touch, 2 things you can smell. Take a breath, let it go, taste your coffee or your lunch, whatever it is. But engage those senses. Simple stuff, not easy.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And going back to using all of that technical language at the beginning, we were like, oh, we have to show all the serious stuff. We have to show all the research, and we have to show
right. Prove it.
And yes, research is important, research based. We definitely stay on top of the latest trends because we are kind of nerds about this stuff, but we don't feel the need to make it seem academic for the sake of it. More important than it sounding smart is that people get the concepts.
Yes. And feel it.
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah. And in fact, I noticed in your bio, speaking of words and intentionality, you use this phrase at hope. I work with at hope youth rather than at risk youth. But that is powerful, right? I mean, that sets right there your intention of how you intend to work with, what your goal is, what your hope is, what your plan is, and I just think you're talking about these words and the importance of them, but what's the bigger picture is, and bringing us back to this talk about what we're feeling and what we're noticing, what we're aware of, how we can pull that out of others too, because for some this is very new and uncomfortable, right?
Oh, it's so uncomfortable. And I'll give you another little quippy stuff because I really like that stuff. I didn't mention in my bio, but I am in the recovery world as well. And so I love those little phrases that can, the one day at a times,
Hmm.
the take it easies, like those little pieces. And as we're talking about that, thinking about things can be simple but not easy. And also like just because uncomfortable doesn't mean that I'm unsafe. And being
That's
able to
good.
decipher between those things for a trauma survivor, or for most of us that have been in our
Hmm.
survival, everything feels like this big
Right.
or like nothing. I can't feel anything. I can feel everything.
Right.
So that's why that sensory engagement is so important
Yeah.
also. And that's why intentionality with language is so important,
Yeah.
Yeah.
because what we're talking about is like re or reestablishing or establishing neural pathways and ways of thinking, ways of feeling, ways of being. Um, I'm a hiker too, right? A mountaineer. When we're walking through different trails, sometimes we trailblaze, and sometimes it's a place that we haven't gone there before. And I've trailblazed with shorts on, wouldn't recommend it. And I've trailblazed with pants on, and that's a much better way, easier way. And if we're talking about these like, kind of concepts and parallels, when we walk through and trailblaze with people, it's like trailblazing with pants on, or stress with friends, right? Because
Yes.
like makes stress
That's
tolerable.
buffer. Yeah.
Yeah.
Buffer, it's the buffer, stress with
Yeah.
friends, right? And versus just going at it alone and thinking that, oh, well, this is just the way it is. Just because we can doesn't mean we should.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I love
Well,
that.
and to take that metaphor further, the more you walk the trail, especially if it's never been walked before, the easier it becomes, right?
Absolutely.
And that's
Hmm.
that neuroplasticity piece.
Yeah.
The brain loves, that's how we change. That's how we build resilience, is this therapeutic dosing, these small doses of
Hmm.
connection, of
Yeah.
positivity. And so everything that you're saying, it's just aligned so much with everything that we believe in, and how we change and how we heal. It's beautiful.
Yeah. Those pieces of like, we're all human. This is not different for those people who do have four or more aces. Like, this isn't like those people who have four or more aces, well, they're not going to be able to figure this out, or they're going to need this more than other. We all need this. We all need the hope of understanding that we can grow and change. And it's a physiological, like, that's what we're designed to do. We're designed to survive, and thrive. It's just a pivot. Somebody told me one time, I said, I'm so nervous, I'm so anxious. And she said, are you nervous or are you excited? I said, oh my goodness, I think I'm actually excited now that you say
Excited.
that.
Yeah.
And so, like, what we call it matters. It matters what we call it.
Right. Right. And you can be both probably. You can be,
Totally.
because the nervous is like you're the danger, but there's still so much opportunity that, yeah, the
It's
excitement
what we're
is there.
focusing on, right? The
Hmm.
Yeah.
stories that we're telling ourselves. And, I know you all work with people who work with little ones, whatever
Hmm.
age that is. I say little ones, right? Like
Yeah. And it can be like
young
at
adults.
birth and preschool, but it also can be clear up, as they're launching into adulthood. So,
Right, absolutely. And there's that piece of we remember ourselves at those ages too.
hmm.
And so I find myself now in my life with my sisters, they have kids of all different ages, and I
Hmm.
think of myself at that age, and the world is not the same,
Yeah, most
Yes.
certainly.
Yeah.
right? And so like
Yeah.
the what's required is different. It's so hard because the easy thing to do is to say this and that are the same,
Hmm.
and to get really attached. And the harder thing to do is to pause, listen, and slow down. I keep saying that,
Hmm.
but um, But
Yeah.
when we're able to like notice that in ourselves, then we can connect better. And connection is really what we're all about at Origins. We launched the Resilience Learning Community
Mm-hmm.
for because we know there are so many different entry points for people to understand these concepts through. We have a gentleman who's going to talk about our stories about money and our beliefs about money. And
Interesting.
Yeah.
from this lens, which I was
Mm-hmm.
like, no way. I, I thought he was
Yeah.
trying to sell me something at first. And I was like, but then we got to talking and I was like, oh wow, we connected for a reason,
Mm-hmm.
energetically here we are. Um, we talk to folks who are, the more traditional, what you think of when you think of resilient stuff, the
Mm-hmm.
yogi, meditation, but we also have folks who are talking about grief,
Yes.
right? And how,
Yes.
what a process that is for
That's
every
huge.
human,
That's huge. Mm-hmm.
and how that can be a trauma, and how can we approach that in a way that is through this same lens, through this resilience building, healing lens. It's the post-traumatic growth.
Mm.
Mm.
How can we
Right.
grow through this experience? And if we're going to use that same metaphor of hiking and really enjoy the views that we work so hard for,
Right. Yeah. You
Yeah.
climb the mountain, you should get
we
to see that
climb that
view.
mountain, how can we look around and actually like enjoy the views and
Mm-hmm.
take it all in and be able to perceive what's in front of us
Right.
in that moment?
Mm.
No, it's huge. And one of the things I've appreciated about learning about you and about Origins and what you and Lori are doing is how focused it is on this community that you're developing. And that because community is at the core of all of that. And I think that that's when we hear about loneliness and things that are just happening in a lot of people's everyday lives, I don't think
Yeah.
we can
Not
say it
belonging.
enough about
Right.
the importance
Mm-hmm.
of not doing any of this alone. So I don't know how that turns into a question, but I wanted to throw out that observation about your focus on community is so dead on, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I come from a big family, and I don't think there are more different people you'll ever meet than in one's own family.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
From
Agree.
my experience, I don't know. And so we often gravitate towards what's different between myself and somebody else. And that's natural, that's survival. It's more valuable and more fun when we recognize what is similar in
Mm-hmm.
us
Mm-hmm.
so that we can establish that sense of safety and then
Mm-hmm.
we can celebrate our differences. I'm not one to minimize differences at all or bright side or silver lining,
Mm-hmm.
right? Or any of that stuff. It's like establishing safety first and connection first so that we can actually enjoy, right? Like the differences, enjoy the colorfulness of the mosaic of humanity. Um, but finding the similarities of what bring us together are this how stress impacts us, what we do about it, and how we can grow from
Mm-hmm.
that. And that's the foundation of the community. And we found this in organizations when we're working in organizations with teams, right?
Mm-hmm.
There are the people who are the detail-oriented ones, the ones who are like, why can't you just da da da? There's the
Right.
creative ones who see all the colors and flavors and shapes and who are not great at time management and who probably, and I'm generalizing because
Right.
there is some overlap, of course. Um, a lot of the conflict we see is in the siloing of departments of how everybody is different. So when we can come together around similarities, that can really establish a sense of safety, which is how we do what we do. And then we can come together and say, this is really, this is how I do it. How do you do it? Oh, that makes sense. I never thought of it like that. And it's safe to think differently, or to behave differently when we understand like there's a shared sense of empathy.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's we established the community because in January when everyone's everything was being just gutted,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
there were folks who we worked with who had been let go and we just couldn't connect with them. And we were like,
Right.
all this brilliant talent, these brilliant people, where are they going to go?
Mm-hmm.
And kind of taking notes from Pieces Connection. we're like, well, we're good at the learning stuff. We want to learn from everybody. We want other people to learn and grow around this specific topic, which overlaps so many different pieces.
Right.
And so we established the learning community, and we do have a once a month check-in where it's fun to see people from all different sectors. It's the second Tuesday of the month at noon to 12:45 Pacific time. And that is open to anybody. It's free to be a member
Oh,
to the community too, which is something we thought was important.
that's
We do
great.
most of our things donation based. We do have a membership structure. So if you want access to past trainings or to our continuing education basics training on what a trauma-informed approach means, the shared language thing,
Mhm.
that is part of a membership, but you get continuing ed credits for that too.
Right.
Um, so yeah, it it just seemed natural. We were like, we know so many great people. Why not? I'm a person who loves to throw a party. And so I'm like, everyone should just come together. Like, let's just have a party, like a
Yeah. Let's
virtual
do it
party.
once a month. Yeah.
And once a month, and everybody can, and we've had events and been able to highlight different things. And I've learned so much. Like it's been really fun.
That sounds fun. And we will definitely get the link to your website and to that information in the show
That's what
notes.
I was just going to say. We want to be able to showcase and give resource and support to all of our listeners through you. And, like one of the things that I found extremely valuable on your site is that resilience survey, right? I mean,
Such
that
resources.
just gives so much hope. And I think that one of the things you do best and one of the things that is most needed, and that's just an easy way, an easy access, support, and resource. So
Mhm.
we're going to put all of that in the show notes and anything else you can think of that we've left out.
We have an event coming up on April 1st. It's not an April Fool's joke, but it is comedy. It does have to do with comedy and resilience. So we hope to see you all there. It's one of those situations I realize if we're not like laughing, we're crying, right?
Oh,
Especially
laughter is so healthy.
right. And so
Mhm.
we have some great panelists who are from all different backgrounds. We have a woman who works in improv and recovery. We have a gentleman who is Yemeni, and he uses comedy to kind of like grapple with his identity. And then
Ah,
we've got a couple other TBD folks.
That's
So
cool.
it's going to be a really exciting event, and it'll be interactive. Everything we do is really interactive. We believe in the wisdom of the group. There's always a
Mm-hmm.
perspective or an insight that's brought to the meetings, the gatherings. I think that is unexpected. So you're always in for a surprise in like the best way possible.
yeah.
Um, with that resilience survey, Ginger, it kind of the reason that we love that one so much that is that it's a growth mindset, right? It's like
Yes.
not yet. Um,
Yes.
and again, coming back to language, that really matters. Like, do I have supports and community? Yes, no, not yet. Or
Mm-hmm.
it's like, yes, not yet,
Mhm.
right? So that kind of idea of like there's lots of opportunities, and it's a how we're going to figure out and problem solve together, and we're not in this alone, and we want people to have different entry points. Again, if your thing is not grief, okay, come to a comedy thing. If you're not sure what your thing is, come to the community check-in, and you might meet the person that you need to meet, or the people that you need to meet, or
Right.
you might be the person somebody else needs to meet. That's
Exactly.
Yes.
also often happening. And it's that give and take, and that's the beauty of what we also uplift community care, right? We talk
Mm-hmm.
a lot about self-care, and especially as helpers, it's so easy for us to give, give, give. I have to
Yep.
do this for this person, and then there's a little bit of resentment that gets built up, like if we're
Mm-hmm.
honest. And that's a lot about what burnout is,
Yep.
I'm really burnout and resentful that my time and my energy and my efforts and there's a lot of energy there. So when we engage in community care, it helps again, stress with friends. It helps us mitigate the impacts of the stress. It doesn't reduce the stress. There's endless stress.
Right.
You're not short on stress.
Right.
It just helps us metabolize, manage, share in the carrying of the stress together.
Yes.
When we're
Yeah.
not alone, it just
Yeah.
it's human nature. We feel
Yeah.
safer when we're
Yeah.
together with
Yeah.
other people.
That safety of community and being able to, so important.
Yeah. And I just want to clarify something I had said earlier when we were talking about a study and a survey, that we're not encouraging anyone to give a child, to have them taken a survey that can be so traumatizing and so triggering, and with that are not their fault. But what happens that I think has been missing in that you're offering is that if we know a child is at risk, and that's what we need to know, not details and not what happened and not them talking about it, but this gives us, where do we go from here? Like, what is the resilience factors? Who is surrounding the child? What resources? How do we fill in the gap? And so I just wanted to make that clear, that I'm not at all advocating for giving a child an A survey.
Right. But for the adult, I mean, like that, like time and time again, when we talk about what we do for children, the number one thing that you do for children is have the adults in their space be ready to be there and intentional and present. And the only way we can maintain is if we're taking care of ourselves in this way. Right.
Amen. Thank you, Julie. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's where you come in.
I think that's where Andi's work is really an important thing for everybody who's listening to ponder, because we don't spend a lot of time on this podcast talking about what you do for yourself. But just like she said, we're going to go to burnout if we don't figure out how to do that. And
exactly. Yeah.
And the tools that you have, Andi, are so readily available to all of us, really.
Yeah.
Right. And, I think that it's a matter of when kiddos see adults who make mistakes and then they pivot and they grow and they are different the next time, instead of reinforcing this is scary, adults yell. We do. We're human. Kids yell. We don't. Right. But when we say, like, oh, I yelled, I'm going to try better next time, and we actually change our behavior and we do that, and we acknowledge what we're doing, it's less gaslighty. I don't know if that's the clinical term for it, but we're calling it something. And then the kiddos, whatever age they are, recognize, oh, this is a thing that humans do. How we are is how they think that, like, if we think back to our old time, like our own parents, our own caregivers, or the people that we saw in media even growing up, like that, the norms were what we saw.
Right. That's what we
And
thought.
so we get to be the norms, for better or worse, for them. And that we get to, right? We get the opportunity to fall and to get back up, to say, I'm going to try something different, to take accountability and acknowledge, you know what, that was me, because, this thing that I used to do, it used to be helpful when I was in that other environment, but it's not helpful now. Like, have you ever had that brings up, you can bring up conversations like that with kiddos, because that's a human experience. I remember when you were in kindergarten and you used to take naps because that was helpful. You can't take naps now. What do you do?
Right.
Because you still get tired. So it's like, as an adult, we can't take naps. We can't really yell at people. What do we do?
We're out of options.
Right? I mean, we can yell at people. It's just not a matter of consequence, right? So
no, it's a beautiful conversation about repair. And that we're not perfect. Everyone's going to make a mistake. How do we manage it? How do we move forward so that we don't get stuck? And I'm going to model
there's more growth that happens there, really. I mean, watching somebody else make a mistake and then solve it in some way, like repair for it, is a growth moment for the person doing that, but also for for the children or anybody observing that. Because
Anybody observing.
Shame. It just removes this shame for being human. Like we don't need. Yeah. So
we
good.
all mess up.
You make me think of, Julie, like I had a super, like when you have like I grew up having like bosses who were like tough bosses, right? And then you have a boss who's like chill or reasonable, and like how it changed, like, oh, it can be like this.
It can be like this.
Wow.
Yeah. The surprising thing is we might be more productive as workers when it's like that.
Imagine. When we feel safe, we are more productive.
Yeah.
And that's really the foundation of everything we're talking about here.
Yes.
We're talking about how can we create safety when we're uncomfortable. We can be uncomfortable together and scared together and safe. Just because I'm scared doesn't mean that I'm unsafe. It just means that I'm scared.
Right.
And when you survive that uncomfortability moment, you know then I can survive this. It expands you, it expands that window of tolerance. It's so powerful. That's that growth, it's beautiful.
We were developing the online workshop that I was just mentioning, the one that you get continuing ed for the basics with our web developer, right? So you can imagine he's a web developer guy, comes from IT world, pretty emotionally intelligent person. And he said after he finished doing the training and working with us, he said it changed. I'll give you more context. He's from Canada. He said it changed how I show up at my hockey games.
Oh.
Wow.
He said it changed how I show up with my wife. It changes how I show up with my kids because my assumptions are different.
Wow.
Because I recognize they're just trying to find safety too. They're scared.
Yeah.
They might be activated.
Wow.
Yeah. We just had a beautiful conversation with Dr. Stan Sanu, who said something very similar. He's a doctor, and nowhere in the medical training was he given this information. And so when he learned it, again, huge light bulb. And he said, it changed how I showed up with family, with work, with everything. And that's the heart of this work. It changes us, it shifts us, and that change leads to healing. So beautiful.
It's so much less exhausting.
Like
if I just think, you know what, they're just having a day, they're a person too. I've been there. I can understand that feeling. Gosh, that's hard. And I go get somebody a sandwich, or I do the dishes and whatever, or I pick somebody's kid up. I'm not doing it from a place of like, well, I should, or maybe they'll do it for me, right? It shifts physiologically, neurologically, biologically, changes everything. And it overall reduces stress. And that's what we're talking about when we talk about being trauma informed. It's understanding that if we continue to create stress and trauma, it's going to impact us negatively.
Right.
And there's something we can do about it.
Yes.
That is it being that the approach of how we're doing that.
Yes.
That's it.
Yeah. And when you talk about that, it changes physiologically for the person that you're doing that for, but it also changes you physiologically. So then all of a sudden, both of you have less stress.
Yeah.
It's like,
contagious. Yeah, very much so.
Wow. Andi, you called it before we got on the air. You said, that we'll probably blow through this really fast. We did. We did. We have talked the length we normally talk, and I feel like we could probably go on all afternoon, but we won't.
If we want a part 2 or part 3, you know where to find me. I'm always down for a fun little chat, and we can do a seasonal, whatever works.
It's been great to talk to you, and it'll be exciting to hear what the listeners have to say. We will definitely link to your monthly party that you have over at Origins, because we want folks to be able to do that and come join your community, because it's a great place to be. So thank you. Thanks for your time today as well.
Thank you, Julie. Thank you, Ginger. And thank you, everybody who's listening. I really look forward to meeting all of you, sharing in your wisdom. Sign up for our newsletter if you're interested in staying on top of different events that we may have coming up. If you're a trainer yourself or you're interested in uh, learning more about, kind of teaching what you're good at, we have a resilience sandbox, which is like a little workshop opportunity for anybody who's just starting out. So we have lots of different fun stuff for anybody, and it's all about community. So grateful to be part of yours.
Love
That's
it.
fantastic. Thank you. Thank you, Andy. Thank you, listeners. And do check out all the things in our show notes. And we will catch you all the next episode.
And that's a wrap for today's episode of Regulated and Relational. In our next episode, Julie and Ginger talk with Billy Kaplan. Together, they reflect on the power of reframing, the meaning of the PACE approach, and the surprising truth that sometimes the most serious work is play. A special thanks to Joe Kramer for donating the music. To learn more about the Attachment and Trauma Network, visit us at www.attachtrauma.org. I'm Lauren Cassis, and as always, thank you for listening.